Welcome, welcome. We are here for training. I'm going to let some more people join. Don't mind my appearance today. I just got out of a staff meeting and realized we were 10 minutes until training. So I'm here. My voice is a little raw. Actually, I'm going to hook up my earbud here. Might make it a little bit easier. Doesn't want to connect on YouTube, apparently. Oh, well, hopefully you guys can hear me. Thanks, Danny. Danny's going to be in the comments, just moderating for today. Make sure everybody gets the info from me that they need. Don't mind the glare on the board. The board is more for me than it is for you. If you're here and you want to say hi in the comments, go ahead and do so. I'm going to go ahead and get started just because, as you can see by the board, we have a ton to cover today. Can't find a pointer anywhere, even though I have 100 of them. So instead of going and tearing the house apart, I'm just going to use a marker today. Essentially, today we're talking about dangers of extreme heat in HVAC. So working in hot attics, on hot roofs, even in homes, like we are there to fix the air conditioning. So typically there's no air conditioning in the places that we're fixing. Extreme cold is another one that we still have to worry about in the summer, even though we're used to worrying about that in the winter. And that's because refrigeration techs, a lot of the time we don't only do refrigeration, or we do only do refrigeration and condensers around the roof, or there's lots of reasons for it, but it's just as dangerous to go from 100-degree outside day on the roof into a -20 cold box. There are just as many health concerns from that. So, but we will do a separate class on that, just so that we don't get them all mixed up and start doing things that are for one that should be for the other. We're going to talk about just extreme heat safety protocol today. And what I have drawn from is absolutely OSHA's regulations. It is other industry standard regulations, but also just experience being a tech in an attic or on a roof or on a 100+ degree day. And then also the tech support line. A lot of the calls we get, most of the calls we get are diagnostic, obviously, in nature, but sometimes we get calls about how long should I be in this attic? My boss says that I have to stay up in this 135-degree attic until we're done, and that we're not to take breaks until break time, but we're all getting sick up there. What should I do? So we get calls like that as well. The most important thing in any trade, but especially in HVAC, because it's our trade, is to be safe. If you can't do a job safely, it's not worth doing the job. I would much rather, as an owner, lose money because my techs took longer than expected to do an install or fix a problem because their safety was the first priority, than to lose a tech or have one seriously injured. It is much more costly to companies as well, but the highest cost is to you and to your family. We don't want to put that at risk ever. So not only, I guess, should we not have to really talk about this, because nobody should be being sent into a 140-degree attic. But even in temperatures cooler than that, even if you're in Florida and you're used to a 130-degree attic and you're in a 120-degree attic today, it seems like a treat, but it's still just as dangerous. So we need to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it today. So if you are watching this later on, there's probably going to be a few points that you can skip just because they're live specific. If you want to do that, just let me know if you're afraid you missed something later on. We'll make sure you get the information you need. Those of you who are here live, go ahead and put a comment when you get here. I know that we just started, but I am going to continue going. So if you missed anything in the live and you'd like me to repeat it, please go ahead and let me know. Danny will make sure that I figure that out. All right. So heat safety protocol. What does it mean? Let's start there. What it means is, what is the safety protocol for a technician who is in an extreme heat situation? Now, how do we define extreme heat? First of all, there is a huge problem with how we define extreme heat, and that's because there is no good way to do that. Heat is very relative. Obviously, the temperature is the temperature, but the way that that temperature affects a human body can be widely different. There's a huge range. So basically, what we call extreme heat is either the first 25 days of spring after a long cold winter. Say you're in a cold climate. If you've had a long cold winter and it's the first 25 to 30 days of spring, your body is not acclimated to the new temperature. It's acclimated to a much colder temperature. Because of that, you can be in a 90-degree attic and get heat exhaustion in 15 minutes just from not being acclimated in the first 30 days of spring. Whereas at the end of summer, you might be able to withstand a 130-degree attic for an hour and have absolutely no problems. So that's something we always have to think about. How acclimated is your body? Because that is going to depend on the severity of the heat exhaustion or whatever happens to you, whatever injury you get from the heat. If your body is acclimated, we talk about extreme heat as anything. There are two ways to define it. The first is by temperature, right? So we have a temperature chart here. We have 100 to 110. You're able to do continuous work in that if you're acclimated. So say you're in Florida or Texas and you're used to the heat, that's what you do, and you're in a 100 to 110 degree attic, you are probably okay to do continuous work in that attic, taking breaks when they're specified, obviously, if you are drinking every 15 to 20 minutes. We'll get into why that is so important. But if you're drinking every 15 to 20 minutes in a 110-degree attic and you're taking common sense breaks and you're acclimated to the heat, chances are your body is going to do just fine. You're not going to have any problems at work. You're going to go home to your family and probably be really tired and exhausted, but you're going to make it through that just fine. Now, at a temperature of 110 to 120, acclimated person, again, we're not talking about those 25 days after winter. We're talking about middle of summer for this whole heat chart, okay, in any climate. So you should only be in a 110 to 120 degree attic for 30, I'll say 30 to 50 minutes. Because again, if you're a Texas or a Florida or an Arizona tech, you're used to this. You have a lot more acclimation. Me, I would only want to be in that attic or on that roof for 30 minutes in. I would want to come out and do a cool down for 15 minutes because it's not so much about, oh, you can only work in there for 30 minutes. It's about continuously working in that weather for 30 minutes, in that temperature, that weather. And again, for all of these, water every 15 to 20 minutes is an absolute, cannot take it away. You have to do it. Have to drink water every 15 to 20 minutes. And we'll talk about how much and why and all that in a minute. 130-degree attic. You guys have all seen the Facebook posts flexing on them, right? Oh, look at my temperature probe. It says 130 degrees and I've been in here all day. Not a flex. That's not a flex at all. In a 130-degree attic, your body cannot withstand the heat. And I will tell you why. It's not because of the temperature. I will tell you why in just a minute. To a point where if you're doing work in a 130-degree attic, it needs to be in and out work. Meaning you can't do what we do in the colder temperatures. Colder, I mean by 110, right? In those colder temperatures, we can work 30 minutes, remove ourselves for 15 minutes, go back again for another 30 minutes. We cannot do that at 130 degrees plus because our bodies have such a long time to recover from that time we spent in the attic. So when I say in and out work, what I mean is I already say it's if you're in service. You already know what the diagnosis is. You've already been there for a full diagnostic visit. You say it's a fan motor was the problem. You are very, very comfortable that that's the problem and it's going to fix it. Sure, you can go into that 130-degree attic and change that fan motor and then turn it on to, verify that it works and get out of the attic and then verify the rest of the process. It's not that you can't go in an attic that's 130 degrees or that you shouldn't. It's that you need to make sure that you are very, very focused on what you're doing. You need to get in and get out. And you need to, if you're going to go in and out, back and forth, you need to take very, very long breaks in between. That is the rule for 130 plus. Now, there are even hotter attics. And we all know that. Those of you Southern techs, I can hear you now. You're -20. It has nothing on my 140-degree attic. And you're probably right, because I can survive -20 a whole lot easier than you can survive 140. It's not a flex though. Don't put yourself in a 140-degree attic ever, unless it's an absolute emergency. 140 degrees is emergency only work, meaning it is absolutely, no question, has to be done. And it has to be done in this weather today at this time. As owners, we don't like to ever have emergency work like that. In the commercial world, it'll happen. Absolutely. We do have it happen all the time in the commercial world. In the residential world, if it's an install, my goal is going to be to schedule that install for very, very early in the day. I will pay a bonus to any installer who wants to come in and start this job at 5. I'll talk to my customer, make sure that's okay with them, and explain to them why. If it's going to be 100 degrees outside, and this is in Maine, if it's going to be 100 degrees outside, I know that that attic could approach 140 or higher while my guys are up there working. I don't want that. And I don't want to be in an attic that's 140 degrees. So I'm going to try to start that work as early as possible when the sky is as dark as possible. I'm not saying wake your customers up at 2 a.m., obviously, but most customers are very accommodating, either to starting earlier in the day, or you can have a late day, talk to your customer, they say, we can't do 5 a.m., but we can possibly start at 5 p.m. Give your guys the daytime to rest and be cool and drink and hydrate and be ready. And then at 5 a.m., make sure that you're ventilating that attic. That's another thing we're going to get into is attic ventilation. Make sure you're ventilating that attic, or make sure that that roof, has been tested and is safe. It's not like going to burn somebody if they touch it or anything. But at 5 p.m., usually you're all right to go and work 100% safely without having any extreme heat precautions whatsoever, most of the time. So if you can schedule it for later in the day or earlier in the day, most of the time, it's the middle of the day that is that really dangerous point that you don't want anybody up in those attics or on that roof. 140 degrees, again, emergency only. So as an owner, if I know the attic could approach 140 degrees, even for me, it's 130. Like, our attics don't get this hot. Lots of the people that are watching this video are going to watch this video are going to be in attics this hot though. For me, 100-degree attic, I don't want to be in it. I'm not acclimated to that kind of heat. I live in Maine. The hottest it ever gets here is like 90 degrees, maybe 95, right? Except maybe 1 day a year, 2 days a year. So I'm not acclimated to a 130-degree attic by any means. I'm not acclimated to a 100-degree attic. So that's why I say that what is extreme emergency heat is very relative, depending on where you're from, who you are, what you do. Now, for me, that 140-degree attic is an absolute no. I'm going to schedule that job for earlier or later in the day, or a different day, a rainy day, a day that isn't going to be as hot. And that is how we protect our guys and how we protect ourselves. Hi, Jimmy. Jimmy's in the chat. So this is, the other thing is the buddy system, and I'll touch on that here. We are going to get into it more. Anything over 120 degrees, and I tell this to every tech that goes to HVA-Chicks Coalition in any way, you should never, ever, ever, ever be in an attic or on a roof that's over 110 degrees by yourself, alone. And if you say it's a situation where it's a roof and it's 120 degrees on the roof, but you've got one guy inside, one guy working outside, as long as there's a tether between those two guys, I'm okay with that being the buddy system. As long as, the guy inside knows that the guy's on the roof and that could be a danger, and they're aware and they're paying attention and they're checking in and making sure that that guy's okay. The guy on the roof knows that the other person's going to be worrying about them, and make sure that he, lets them know that he's going to be okay, or that he is okay currently, or how he's feeling, or what he needs. As long as there's a communication between two people, I call that the buddy system. Now, that doesn't mean you and your wife at home. You can't message your wife and say, I'm about to go into this 140-degree attic. I want to make sure I survive, so I'll text you every 5 minutes, get an ambulance there if I need it. That's not a quick response. We need a much faster response than that if we do get to a point of heat exhaustion, and we'll talk about why. So the buddy system is really, really important. If you're an owner and you're watching this, earlier in the day, later at night, always with a buddy, period. Always with a buddy. Never send a single lone guy. And if you're a one-man shop, schedule it for a different day. Sorry, man, it sucks. You got to do it. You got to save yourself. You're a one-man shop. If something happens to you, something horrific, that destroys your company. It no longer exists, and your family no longer has you to rely on. Please don't do that to yourself. Being a one-man show means that you have freedom to choose a different day. Do it. Do it for yourself. So this is attic temp that we've just talked about, and roof temp. Roofs tend to be a little bit safer than attics because of the enclosed nature of an attic. If you've got really good attic ventilation, I am far more comfortable with you in a 120-degree attic than I am if there is no attic ventilation. I'm way more comfortable having a guy on a 120-degree roof, knowing that he can climb down the ladder and get off that roof really easily, and that I have trained him not to push himself to that point, than I am with a 140-degree attic. It's just never going to be a comparison. I always would prefer a roof than an attic. Okay, so why? Why is this so important that we could literally die? The reason for that is because of how the human body reacts to things. So our anatomy itself plays the role in allowing us to stay on an earth that is constantly warming. So when humans, Homo sapiens anyway, our version of human, were first introduced to the earth was covered in 70% ice. Glaciers covered 70% of the earth. So that was a perfect reason for us to be created. Everything on earth was perfect for Homo sapien humans. Since then, it's done nothing but warm. Since the last ice age, throughout the Younger Dryas, the Great Flood, all of that, it's done nothing but warm. So now, what we're living in right now is not perfect for humans. The weather and the temperature we live in now, we've acclimated to, we've adapted to, we've evolved to be able to survive in, but it isn't perfect for humans. So if the outside is already trying to kill us, essentially, what do you think the inside is doing when the outside's heating it up? It is really trying to kill us, and it's very easy for it to do, and it only takes minutes. This is not something that's complex. Now, the reason, and this is a little bit more of a complex part of it, the reason is our bodies, again, are built for colder temperatures. No matter where you're from, they're built for colder temperatures, and you acclimate to warmer ones. Now, if you're sweating, most people think sweat is to cool me off. That is the general consensus of humanity, is that sweat happens to cool your body down. That is not true. Sweat exists to cool your body down, but sweating does not cool your body down. Evaporation does. Now, everybody watching this can understand this concept very, very well because you already understand refrigeration. Essentially, we have our own internal cooling system. So sweat forms on our arms. Let's talk about the whole process of heating up, okay? If our body, we start out at 98.6, and that is the exact temperature to the point, to the decimal point, that we want to maintain in our bodies. Some people run a little hotter, some people run a little colder, but that is the general maintenance that we want to be at, is 98.6. Okay. So if we start out at 98.6, as our body warms, as the body temperature inside us rises, some things happen to our body. Oh, the tech support line is ringing. Jimmy, if you can get that, I would really, really appreciate you. Sorry, guys. Hi, Tracy. Awesome, awesome. So if we're at 98 degrees, that's where we want to be. When we heat up, our body has to react. Every action has a reaction. So the action is heat. The reaction is our body does some cool things in order to help us out with that, help us to acclimate. The first thing that it does is dilates our blood vessels. So all the blood vessels in our bodies dilate. They go, and then when they do that, they're releasing more blood. What that does is push that heat to our skin. So we have all these layers of body, right? We have our different systems. We have our vascular system. We have our dermis. We have every part of us that exists. All of that contains heat. And so when the body heats up, every piece of it is also heating up. So all of those parts of your body work together to dilate your blood vessels and get the heat out of those precious organs, out of your vascular system, out of your nervous system, out of every part that the heat cannot stay in. And it pushes it to your dermis, your skin. As it raises to your dermis, it's able to release, right? Why is it able to release? Not because you're sweating, because it evaporates. So that sweat that forms on your skin is a direct result of all of those systems pushing the heat out. The heat equals condensation, just like in anything else that we're working on, right? Just like in HVAC. Heat versus cool equals condensation. So as that heat releases out of our skin, it evaporates into the air. We're already at 98.6 degrees. So if we're hotter than 98.6 degrees, say we're 100 degrees because our body temperature is rising because it's hot outside. The outside air, chances are it's cooler than that. So heat goes to cold naturally. We know that. So if our bodies are releasing 100-degree air, essentially, we'll call it air just to release into the 100 degrees of heat, right? So if we're releasing 100 degrees of heat and it's 98 degrees outside, we're able to release efficiently 2 degrees of that heat that was in our body out to the outside, just like a condenser, right? A condenser makes sure that the outside air is typically hotter than the air that it's pushing out. When that happens, that heat goes to cold naturally. I mean, it's colder than the air that's pushing out. Heat goes to, and that does a harder time, right? So if your condensing temperature is 108 degrees and it's 120 outside, your outdoor unit does not work as well. It's not as efficient. It can't reject the heat as easily, especially if it's covered by something. So now, not only are we releasing that heat, but the effect is condensation. So now we have sweat also coating our dermis. The dermis that's trying to release heat is now coated in sweat. Now, to make that heat dissipate more easily, that sweat evaporates. And it does just what a AC or refrigeration system does. It carries the heat to a safer place and then evaporates, just like our AC system. If you're covered in sweat and the air temperature is either hotter or more humid than your body temperature, there's nowhere for that to evaporate. Evaporation cannot take place. So what happens if I am sweating and I did put this on the board, right here. If I'm sweating at 95 degrees, say it's a 95-degree attic, and it's 75% humidity in that attic. If I'm sweating, my sweat cannot evaporate, which means the heat cannot release. That humidity is making it so that phase change cannot occur. The sweat on my skin cannot be heated up by the heat in my body and evaporate to release. Instead, it pours off. What happens? What do we make sweat out of? Sweat is the water in our body. Thank you, Jimmy. Sweat is the water in our body that contains sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Electrolytes, essentially. We'll call them electrolytes from now on. So if I am in a 95-degree attic, sweating at 107 or at 75% humidity in that attic, I'm now covered in sweat, but that sweat can't evaporate. Its only choice is to pour off of me. That's when we have soaked shirts. We have water dripping right off of our faces. You've all been there, right? That is the most dangerous moment of our careers. And the reason for that is we're now our cooling system isn't operating properly. Now we're just losing water. So our bodies contain nowadays roughly 82% of water, of our body is water. Used to be much higher, and it should be much higher, but here we are. So if our body relies on having that 82% water, and then we lose water because the dew point isn't right, the humidity is too high, the attic is too hot, we can't release that in evaporation now, so now we're just losing water. It's not working to cool us. That evaporation is not taking place now, so our sweat is not working to cool us, and it is taking percentages of our total body water from us. When that happens, it gets really, really dangerous. As you can see, where did I put it? Over here. Percentage of water loss. Okay, so again, we're going to pretend that we're in a 95-degree attic that is holding at 75% humidity, okay? If that, and we'll say that the wet bulb is, I think I put it, oh yeah. Actually, let's change the scenario because, well, no, we'll leave it. Okay, so 95-degree attic, 75% humidity, 80-degree wet bulb, let's just say, okay? At that point, if we lose 1% of our mental performance, I forgot the L there. So again, we know that we're not evaporating. We know that it's too hot to do that. So we know we're only experiencing water loss via our sweat. At 1% of our body's water lost due to sweating, okay? Our mental performance starts to drop. This is where you notice you've made more mistakes than normal. You go to put your socket wrench, and I've had this happen to me in a hot attic. You go to put your socket wrench on a nut and you go to crank it and you thought you were on the nut the whole time, but you're not. And it's not until you do this 3 times that you realize you're not ratcheting anything, right? Or you keep grabbing for the wrong screwdriver, or things that you wouldn't normally do that are just a little bit off. And you're kind of like, something's going on here. That's what happens when you've lost 1% of the water in your body. That's just 1%. Now picture all of you men, especially men, create more sweat than women. They tend to run at a higher body temperature. Therefore, there's sweat always present. That's a whole other lesson. But men who have been in a 90-degree attic, 100-degree attic, 130-degree attic, you know what I'm talking about. Your shirt, you could wring it out. You've just got water everywhere. It's in your eyes. It's in your mouth. You can't get rid of it. It's just constant sweat pouring off your body. I would absolutely say when you're in that situation, you will lose probably more than 1% of your body's water. So just at 1%, you have quite a noticeable mental performance drop. That's when your brain ain't quite braining the way it should. At 2%, so now you're wringing your shirt out. Now we've got all this, we've got water on the beams, on the joists below us, where we've been, on our hands and knees working, and there's water dripping off of us now, right onto the floor. 2% of your body's water lost means a huge lack in coordination. So now the mental stuff is weird, and this part's weird. You reach out to grab that gas valve, you just loosened everything up on to pull it out. You go to grab it and your hand lands 2 inches next to it. Or you're fighting with you're fighting with a unit door for way longer than it takes to fight a unit door, right? When your brain and your hands just aren't matching up, that starts to happen about 2%. That's only you being in the attic in we'll say 120-degree attic for 1 hour without taking a break, okay? Because we're supposed to only do 30 minutes in, 30 minutes out. You stay in that attic for 1 hour without taking a break, without drinking water. Now, all of that water has left you. You now are experiencing severe problems with your mental performance and coordination. 3%, major confusion. Your buddy and you are doing this attic install. He keeps saying, I'll come out in just a minute. I'll come out in just a minute. I know what I'm doing. I'm used to this. I've been doing it forever. Get out of here, young buck. Go drink your water, Sally face, right? We've all heard it. And then you come back up from your water break and he tells you to tell the dogs to stop barking. And you think it's weird, but okay, maybe he heard a dog bark that you didn't hear. And then he starts yelling at his grandchildren. And then he's yelling at his wife. And he's saying his foot's on loose, and all this weird stuff keeps coming out of his mouth. You need to get him out of that attic immediately, because what comes next is within minutes, and it usually results in death, especially for someone who will fight you. If they're fighting you while they're lucid, not wanting to get out of that attic, when they're not lucid, they will fight you 10 times harder. It's extremely scary. At 5% of your water lost, this is 2 hours in a 120-degree attic, 1 hour in a 130-degree attic. We're not talking large amount of time here. If you're not replacing that water and you're just sweating and you're working in that attic, you're exerting yourself and you lose 5% of your body's water, it's a medical emergency to a point where death is imminent. So are there people who survive it? Yes. It depends on quickness of removal from the situation, quickness of cool down, and quickness of replacement of electrolytes and water in that body. Most of the time, that doesn't happen quickly enough. Death is imminent at 5% loss of your body's water. Now, I just told you how easy that was to happen. It's not a hard thing. It literally could be the difference between your boss is constantly harping on you to only be in that attic for 30 minutes at a time and take a break, and you stayed for 20 this time and you really don't feel thirsty. You're just going to work through this one. And by the time your buddy comes up from doing what he's supposed to do, you're on the floor unconscious. Now let's talk about what happens. What is that step-by-step process? First, we want to talk about heat exhaustion and heat stroke, because that's most commonly what kills people. Danny says, I was told by an installer that I used to work with that the fastest way is down through the sheetrock if need be. That is 100% true. And I'm actually going to say that eventually in this class. Fastest way out is down, period. So right now we're talking about heat exhaustion and heat stroke, because that is typically what happens from being in an extreme hot place. There are other injuries, there are other deaths that can occur from being in hot places that aren't heat exhaustion or heat stroke, but that's what we're talking about for today. So just know that when I go through these symptoms. The first symptom is something feels off. This is in yourself. So in your body, you've been up in that attic, it's hot, you're used to it, you know that your boss ain't gonna let you out. You go down, you drink your water, and as you're walking back up, you're more sluggish. And it just seems a little bit more like you don't want to be here today all of a sudden. And something feels off that you can't quite put your finger on. That's number one sign of heat exhaustion. Something feels off. Now, the problem with that being the number one sign in a male-dominated field is that men tend, and I'm sorry before I say this, know that I'm saying it because I see you and I care. Men tend to ignore that as a symptom. That is the number one defense of keeping you alive with heat exhaustion, is that something feels off. But men typically within themselves tend to ignore that or push it off or purposely ignore it, right? You know it, but you're ignoring it. And even more so, that knowledge that that's happening to you does not come out of your mouth. Nobody else. You'll do anything to make sure nobody else knows you're feeling that way. That is why this is so much more dangerous in men than in women. Obviously, it's because men work in hotter jobs than women typically too, but we're here too. We're almost 3% of the industry now. We're here too. And even still, the chances of a woman or a man falling from heat stroke are much higher in men. It just is. And that is one of those reasons, is because you guys do not listen to your bodies correctly. And I'm sorry, I love you, but you don't listen to your bodies. And even if you are listening to it, you will not ask for help. That becomes a problem. So if you know that the first sign is something feeling off, but you also know you're the type to ignore that, please, please, please do whatever you have to do to stop that part of yourself. Do not ignore anything feeling off ever, because it's almost always a sign that something's wrong, whether it's heat exhaustion or, swimming in the ocean or anything else. It's almost always a sign that something is wrong. You don't ever want to ignore the signs your body is giving you, but men tend to do it all the time. The other thing is, because of that, I would urge you, we're all going to be in the buddy system here if we're in hot attics or on hot roofs. I would urge you to pay attention to each other. Even if you are too proud to say, I'm not feeling well, watch out for your buddy and make sure that he's not also too proud to say he's not feeling well. Because chances are you're looking around going, well, everybody else seems fine. But chances are they don't. They don't feel fine. You're all doing that. Making sure that we're talking about this and communicating about it and watching out for each other is the most important thing when it comes to heat stroke and heat exhaustion. So something feels off is number one. Number two is muscle cramps. Your muscles will feel stiff. Go down, you drink your water, and you go to climb back up that attic ladder, and everything is just locking up on you. Your hands, your feet, your ankles, your knees, your elbows, your joints feel awful. The backs of your shoulders feel like you have a sunburn. You know that feeling where you're like, did I work out too hard or do I have a sunburn? That feeling keeps happening. And then number three is going to be, and even that, men, even women, mostly men, will ignore that. If your muscles are cramping, it's not because you've been in HVAC for 22 years and this is your first attic. It's because something's different today. Something's wrong today. So if you have both of those symptoms, something's been feeling off since you started, maybe an hour in, and now your muscles are starting to feel stiff and it wasn't like that 20 minutes ago, listen to your body. Listen, listen, listen. The third is syncope. Confusion typically comes first, where you're like, not outwardly, like you're not belligerently confused, but you're confused. You're like, why do I feel like this? Where did I just put that screw? I just had it in my hand. Really, it's still in your hand. You're like, whoa, it's in my hand. This is crazy, right? Or you're doing a mini split install and you've literally cut the end of your flare off 40 times and you keep putting the nut back on the pipe and reflaring it. Yeah, happens all the time. Or you forget the nut altogether, right? Forget the nut altogether. Either it's going to be one of two things. You're going to cut the flare off and immediately put the nut back on and flare it again, even though you needed to cut off 3 feet of that line before you did that, right? Or you're going to forget to put the nut on at all. When that shit happens over and over and over again, and you're starting to go, something's really, really wrong here, listen to your body, listen to yourself. Then when you get, and syncope is the other part, fainting or feeling like you're going to faint. My daughter has active syncope, which means she faints all the time for absolutely no reason. But there are things that make it worse. Heat is one. And that's not even at extreme dangerous temperatures. People who already experience vertigo or syncope are going to be more affected in the heat. Now, if you're an HVAC tech and you're on a 130-degree roof and you're experiencing syncope, you've got to sit down, drink some water. Your buddies are fanning you because it looks like you're turning a little green there. You might pass out, or you do pass out. Are you going to not listen to that too? For most of you, the answer is yes. You also won't listen to that. And that's what sucks. That's what this trade has done to us. It's made us a series of proud people. We'd rather be proud than alive, right? Listen to your body. If you start to feel like you're going to pass out, you need to be on the phone to your boss at that point. Now the question is he still sweating? Are you still sweating, or have you stopped sweating? Because once we pour that water out of us, we've been talking about it this whole time, condensation versus evaporation. If we can't evaporate, the dew point is too high for that water, that condensation on our skin to evaporate. We're now just losing water. We're not cooling ourselves. We're heating ourselves up more and losing water. Now, if you're at that syncope stage, you're probably also at the 3 or 4% water loss of your body. At that point, there's very little time to save you already. And we're only on step 3. We get to step 4. Once this is happening, these 3 things are happening, you are in active heat exhaustion. Heat exhaustion can kill you before you ever get heat stroke. Absolutely it can. Because this directly correlates to this. Whereas if we're hot to a point where we're fainting or about to faint, we've also lost 3% of our body water. At that point, it's very hard to replace it fast enough and replace the electrolytes, right? Those, woo, knocked my whole award over. It's very hard to replace the sodium, potassium, and magnesium that you need in that water too. It's not just like drinking straight water is just going to help it. At this point, you can't drink it fast enough. And if you did, you could die from that. You could essentially get water poisoning. At this point, you need an IV and a bag dripping into your body, or there is very little chance of saving you. If you're at a rural job site, that takes a while for the EMTs to get to you, or if you don't carry, and everyone should, every person should be carrying a first aid and hydration bag on their trucks. I'll post a picture in the group later as to what should be in your first aid and hydration bag. But say you don't have one. Most don't. I'm sure most of you are just hearing about it now for the first time. It's incredibly dangerous. At this point, when you have heat exhaustion and you've lost 3 or 4% of the water in your body, you are on death's door. Heat stroke rarely happens for people who have heat exhaustion because they die before heat stroke happens. Now, when you do get to step 5 and you're in heat stroke, you are seizing, you are unconscious, or you are in and out of consciousness. And when you're conscious, you're incredibly confused. Your O2 sats will drop. Your blood has all risen to the top of your dermis layer. So now your muscles don't have enough blood. Your joints don't have enough blood. Everything is seized up and cramped. Your neck might be completely cocked sideways and stuck there for a while. This is what happens when you're in heat stroke. It is not pretty, it is not glamorous, and it is not prideful. No part of it. You lose control of your bowels. You lose control of anything that you had control of in your body. Now you are essentially just a sack of meat laying there waiting to be rescued. Heat stroke is not something to flex on, ever. Those, when I see those posts on Facebook and the guys are like, sweat pouring off of their face, and you can see that their jowls right here look a little bit swollen, and they're under their eyes are so beet red, and they're just, soaked head to toe with sweat, and they've got their little thermometer and they're like, yeah, 135 degrees. It makes me want to cry because no part of that is flex. That is so dangerous. And I'm sure that your family, that would be just like posing with a gun to your head, right? I mean, it's just not glamorous at all. So, okay, now we know what happens when we lose the water. We know why we lose the water. And we know what the symptoms of heat stroke are. So now that we're good and terrified, right? Jennifer always starts with a negative. Now that we're good and terrified, what can we do about it? Because we all know there are many bosses out there that don't care. And it's not that they don't care, it's that they really care about money. Now, for those bosses, they're going to say, it's Texas, bro. Being in a 130-degree attic all day, piece of cake. I've survived it like 40 times. And you're going to say that's great for you, but I just moved here from Maine, and my body isn't acclimated to that 130 degrees. I've never experienced 130 degrees in my life, let alone working in it all day. That means death for me at the same time that it might just mean, less productive work for you. It is so relative. You have to listen to your own body. All right, so what can we do? First of all, first place, anybody cools down when they're hot. Fever, your baby, your baby's got a little teething fever. What do? First thing you do is you put a washcloth on their head, cold washcloth. Don't do that. Don't do it. And the reason don't do it is because it doesn't actually do any work, any thermodynamic work. So when we talk about work, and I've explained this in many of our classes, in the engineering world, when we talk about thermodynamic work, we're talking about the energy change or the pressure change, right? The force or anything that is actually actively being changed by what we're doing. That's what the work is. So just like sweating and not being able to evaporate, that's not work. That's not doing any work. The work would be if I were sweating, I had a low dew point, and I'm able to easily evaporate the heat out of my body. That would be thermodynamic work. Now, when you're going to talk about how to fix yourself when you're at the brink of death, or even if you're just don't want to be there, you just want to prevent that, right? We need to figure out where can we do the fastest and most amount of thermodynamic work in the body. The forehead ain't it. It does no thermodynamic work whatsoever. So putting a cloth on your forehead will feel really good. And it'll feel really good because heat rises, right? So all of the heat in our body feels like it's gathering in our head and it feels like it can't get out. And when you put that cloth on, it just feels so good, right? You can do it because it feels good, but you can't do it because you think it'll help you, because it will not. Again, it's doing no work. Now, where do we do work? We need to cool down our necks. These little doohickeys, I got this off Temu, bro. Temu for $11 or something. I got Val and I each one for the bike, because when you're on a Harley and it's 100 degrees out and you live in Maine and it was just 20 degrees yesterday, it's really hard to handle that heat on a black bike. Val and I wear these. It is hard plastic. It's got airflow across it, and it's just a fan. Just a fan. It just moves the air onto your carotid arteries. It cools the right place. Holy shit, that's crazy, right? Imagine them teaching us where we actually need to cool down instead of just saying, here's a cloth for your forehead. But these are really great. They have one button on them. They're very inexpensive. So if you lose it, who cares? If you leave it in an attic, who cares? At least you had it with you. Now, not only does this cool your carotid and all of your arteries, essentially, both that are in your neck anyway, it cools your arteries down, which cools your blood down. It makes your blood undilate. It makes it drop from the tip top of your skin where it's rising to keep you from dying, essentially. And it makes you kind of level out a little bit. It does another thing, though, because it's airflow. Airflow across a coil does what? Increases evaporation, right? So airflow across your sweaty skin in a place where the dew point is 75%, that's going to create just enough airflow. You hold it like this, you put it up on your shoulder like that, and it's blowing under your armpit or across your arm or across your side. It's going to create just enough of a pressure differential and a temperature differential to be able to start evaporating again. So now that water that you're sweating out isn't just water loss. Now it's actually doing thermodynamic work to make sure that releases from your body. So these are really awesome. This is just a fan, by the way. They do make AC ones. I haven't heard great things about the AC ones. I've heard that they last like, an hour and that they don't charge for 24 hours. And I've heard all kinds of things. But just the fan one alone is enough to save your life. if you put this on early enough, if you're not in the end stages of, if you're not at heat exhaustion yet, and the heat is starting to cause those first couple of symptoms, you put this on, you're going to create just enough of a temperature differential to start evaporating, and you're going to cool the parts that matter, the parts that can actually do that work within your body to release the heat. Your arteries are one major one. These little neck fans are everything. And again, this has holes through the whole bottom of it. So you could you could put it, in front of you here, and it would still be blowing at you, creating that change in temperature. Neck is number one. Number two is your armpits. Again, you put that in your armpits. So your major blood vessels are at the creases in your body. So here in your armpits, down in your hootie hoo, in your neck, behind your knees, right? Those are the places where the blood vessels gather and end. When we need to target blood vessels to cool them down in order for them to undilate, we need to cool off that part of ourselves. These are really good for that too. Like I showed you, I often, if I'm working, say I'm doing my board and it's really hot in here and I haven't turned the AC on, I'll just stick this thing on here. It's blowing my face, it's blowing my armpit, it's blowing my neck, it's cooling me down, it's doing a great job. The other thing you can do is cool packs. You can put cool packs in your armpits and then go up in the attic. Don't do it after you have heat exhaustion, obviously. Once you have heat exhaustion, you've lost so much water that cooling you down, as important as it is not going to save your life at all. We need to do these things at the step before heat exhaustion has happened, at the step where we've lost less than 1% of our body's water. If we can keep ourselves cool, we won't lose that water. Our bodies won't need to sweat so much. And that sweat that we do put out will evaporate rather than being lost. So we need to do these at the early stages. This fan should always be on you, or a fan should always be on you, battery operated. Major blood vessels in your pits. The other one is your groin. It's not only your blood vessels in your groin that we're targeting to cool down, it's also your femoral artery. So anywhere where we can target an artery to cool it down, it's like the difference of, say you need to cool down a really, really big coil, right? You can cool it down at the biggest pipe, or you can cool it down at the tiniest little tiny pipe. You're going to choose the bigger pipe because you need to cool more of the liquid inside it. It's the same with our arteries. If we can cool our groin down, we're cooling our femoral artery. If we can cool our neck and our groin, say you have a coolie towel, you stick it right here, just in the hem of your pants. You're going to do a lot more work with that than you will a washcloth on your head or even this fan. I need you to all understand that it's not about the temperature, it's about the placement. Groin, neck, pits, and wrists, believe it or not. Your wrists, the top part of your body, all of those blood vessels end in your wrists. So the fastest place to cool down a human body is in the wrist. Is that not nuts? I never knew that until I was researching for one of our safety topics that we teach our companies. But that was really interesting to me, that of all these very, very hot places on our bodies, like humans are just hot, right? We're just hot people. Of course we are. But anyway, that it's the wrists that cool you down the fastest. So if you need to cool, say your buddy's already in the delusional phase and you're like, oh shit, we need to get him out of here. We need to get him cooled down. It's not necessarily life or death where you're calling 911, but you need to get him out of the attic and you need to get him cooled down. Stick his wrists in some ice water. Everybody should have a cooler with ice, with water in it, in their truck if they're going to be on an install for a day. Service techs, bring a thermos. I always say to bring a thermos, even if it is the last thing you drink and you go to the store and you get this and you go to the store and get that all day long, and the last thing you drink is that thermos, it will save your life if it's all that's there. Say it's at a point where you're on a service call, you're in a really hot attic and you didn't stop at the store. You thought it was going to be a quick one. Now it's not. You have that thermos in your truck. Make sure you have it with you. So those are the places we want to cool down first. And again, this is only going to matter in these phases. When we have, it's either just really hot and you just know it's really hot and you're like, I can't handle it, I'm just so hot. That's when you want to start these practices. And then also, like, if your muscles are starting to feel stiff already, sometimes you can come out of that. It's not like even step 2 isn't even just like an end all be all. Sometimes you can come out of that. If you say you pushed it a little bit too much and you're like, shit, now my fucking knees are starting to hurt, my thighs are starting to cramp up. You go down, You take a lunch break in your truck and you call your boss and you tell him you may have screwed up and got a little bit of heat exhaustion. You need to just try to do a little bit better and you want to go back to work. I'm going to take an hour this time, whatever we got to do about that. You sit in your truck for a while with the AC, you drink a whole bunch and whatever, your body has cooled down and those cramps stop. Now it's not like, oh shit, I got to number 2. I can only move forward. You can move backward too. So if you're able to cool yourself down and to hydrate yourself to a point where you are feeling better, you're welcome to go back to work. We just want to stop you from dying. That's the big thing. It's the number one thing. Okay, so once we get to number 5, well, actually, I'm going to say once we get to number 4, if you or a buddy is at a point where they're delusional, they have muscle cramps, they've passed out or look like they're going to pass out, they're pale, or God fucking forbid, they have stopped sweating, 911 is your only option. You need to get them out of the attic as quickly as possible and put 911 on the phone. Never, ever, ever do we want to ignore any of those symptoms, and definitely never do we want to let anyone ignore them about us. If you are advocating for yourself and your buddy is telling you you're fine, they're wrong. Call 911 yourself or yell for the homeowner. Somebody needs to help you. This is life or death. Once you get to heat stroke where you've stopped sweating and there is no more water to leave your body, at that point you are as good as dead. It's very, very hard to survive it. Now, speaking of that, human survival becomes impossible at 10 minutes in a 95-degree wet bulb temp. So at that point, we cannot sweat. We have lost all of our water that's in our body, and we can't absorb anymore at a wet bulb temperature of 95 degrees. Now, if the earth got to that, every human would drop dead within 10 minutes. That's how serious that is. So you need to not only know what temperature is your attic, what's the humidity? Is there ventilation? If not, is there ventilation I can provide for myself? If not, you're not going in the attic, or you're not staying in the attic anyway. And that is how I tell every single person to be, because your company, whether they get sued or not, whether your wife ends up rich over it or not, they can't bring you back. They can't bring you back. Your life depends on your advocacy for yourself. Your partner's life, and I would even argue this because I'm going to say it, and not everybody is like me, but I am like me. Your partner's life also lies on your advocacy of them. If your partner isn't saying anything or somebody's dogging on your partner for feeling sick, you need to stand up and say, I'm getting them out of here, period. I would much rather you deal with the repercussions. And also, we have 22 lawyers. We have lawyers in 22 states helping HVA-Chicks Coalition technicians. If you get fired for pulling your buddy out of an attic that's too hot when you're worried about him, you call me and we'll take care of that. I would much rather you or your buddy be alive. They can't bring you back, period. At that point, you're calling 911. After step 3, syncope and confusion, there is no question about it. 911 is on the phone and your buddy's out of the attic trying to be cooled down. If you need to cool your buddy down, you're cooling his pits, you're cooling his neck, you're cooling his groin, you're cooling his wrists. Maybe don't touch his groin, but got to cool it down. If you got to throw an ice bag onto it, you go for it, buddy. Hydrate or dihydrate. That is the number 1 rule in all of HVAC, and that came from my foster daughter when she was probably 12 or 13. She used to run around my house yelling, hydrate or dihydrate, Aunt Jen. And ever since, it has stuck in the coalition as kind of our summer motto, hydrate or dihydrate. I don't mean, and I saw somebody put it in the chat. Let me see if I can find it. Somebody put in the chat, no caffeine. Aha, it was Tom and Jimmy. So I am the worst about this because of this right here. So I'm going to be completely honest, you guys. In a year, I haven't drank anything but coffee. And it's really bad. And my doctors are aware. And it's a whole thing that we're working on. And I'm trying to be able to stomach anything that isn't coffee. But there are a lot of people like me. And it's because this job makes us like that. We wake up at 5 a.m. We go to work for 12 to 16 hours in the summer. The whole time we're trying to stay alive and energized and focused. We're drinking coffee or we're drinking energy drinks or we're drinking soda, depending on what your poison is. And then we get home 8, 9 o'clock at night. We go to bed. We either don't drink anything, maybe have a sip of water after we brush our teeth, or a glass of milk with dinner if our wife put it in front of us and made us drink it, right? Because we're so exhausted, we don't care. I'm not thinking about what I'm drinking. I want to go to bed. I got to get back up at 5 a.m. and do this all over again. All of us are like this, or most of us are like this, unless we're really, really in tune with our bodies, which we all should be. And you're not the odd man's out. We are. I want that to be known. Like, you are doing the right thing. We're doing the wrong thing. But this happens. We end up in this cycle of just not drinking correctly in general. And then in that process of not drinking correctly in general, and especially here in the Northeast, it was 50 degrees out all winter. Or that was the high. I mean, for the last 9 months, I haven't seen a higher than 50-degree day. And most of my days were less than 0. I didn't need to worry about if I was drinking too much coffee or not, right? But then overnight, I'm now in a 100-degree attic. It hits you so quickly. It gives you no time to prepare, no time to change your cycles or change your habits. It just happens. So we need to really, really be mindful of that. It's not just for yourself. So every single day, I tell everybody this. Wake up in the morning to get ready for work, or if you're a prepper, if you're a night prepper like I am, I like to prep everybody for the next day at night when I have the energy to do so and I'm not irritated and not a morning person. So the night before, I pack 3 things with each one of my kids, and they're not HVA-Chicks, mind you. I pack a smoothie. That's going to give them the protein that they need for energy, for focus, for all of these things that protein provides. I pack them a straight water, and then I pack them a flavored water. So if I have 2 bottles of water and I have a 0 caffeine, 0 sugar, little drop pouch that you put 1 squirt in and it flavors your water like juice, I count that as 2 bottles of water, right? That's 2 bottles of water. I know for sure my kids are going to drink, and I know for sure if they eat nothing else, they will drink that smoothie. They're going to have everything that they need for a day just in those 3 bottles I packed. So I do the same for Val. I do the same for my adult kids. When my oldest daughter, who's 20, needs me to bring her a lunch at work, I make sure that there are drinks with it. We need to make sure that it's on hand, it's easy to grab, it's not something that is going to make us go out of our way in any way, and that we can keep it cold. Because I know me, if I have a hot coffee sitting in my cup holder, I go up in the attic and work for a few hours, and then I come back down, I've got a bottle of water in one cup holder, and a hot coffee in the other cup holder. I know that that bottle of water is now 90 degrees and it's not going to be refreshing or taste good, but that my coffee has been kept hot this whole time. So that's my go-to. That's my girl logic, right? So make sure you have a way to keep it cold too, so that it's appetizing as well. We need to make sure that the good drinks that will make us feel good are the ones that look appetizing to us and that they're easy to reach in a pinch. And the other thing, like I said about the thermos, that goes for everybody. Keeping a thermos of water in your truck just ensures you have something to drink. It's not like there's no negative to it. It just ensures that you, or maybe somebody else, maybe it's an install, the boss hasn't got there with the cooler yet, and your buddy didn't bring anything to drink. You have a thermos of water in your truck, right? It's saving lives. It matters. So yeah, this is the gist of it. I've given you guys everything that, well, let's go over electrolytes really quick now that we're on hydration. 8 ounces every 15 minutes. That's anytime you're in an attic higher than 98 degrees. Your body temperature is 98.6 degrees. You can evaporate still at 98.6 degrees. Now you can't if it's higher than that. You can't on your own anyway. You have to have some sort of sweat, some sort of internal heat release happening. So if it's an attic or a roof or a job site higher than 98 degrees, you need to have 8 ounces of water every 15 minutes. That equates to 32 ounces per hour. Who here drinks 32 ounces of water an hour? Not me. Clearly, I don't drink 32 ounces of water in a year. This is how much water we need to replace. This is how much water we're losing every time we sweat. This is how much water we're losing. When we get to that 1%, we can't even replace it fast enough. Like, we can't, drinking 32 ounces of water just maintains us. It doesn't save, it's not like, bringing us back from this deficit. It's just maintaining us. If you're in a deficit, you would need something like, I don't know, what's the max? Okay, so OSHA says do not exceed 48 ounces in an hour because you can get water poisoning. So the other thing about heat stroke and heat exhaustion is once you've lost that water, if you try to put it back into your body orally too quickly, it won't be able to be absorbed. So it will sit in your stomach. It can cause sickness, but also it can cause water poisoning. So you don't want to just be like, Okay, I'm going to work my ass off in this attic until I've lost 4% of my body water. Oh, shit. Something bad happened. I better go drink a shit ton of water. You're down there guzzling gallons of water thinking that's going to help. It won't. It won't help, and it's dangerous. So instead, we need to be sipping the whole time or taking a break every 15 minutes to drink at least 8 ounces of water. Most people are probably only going to get 4 ounces into them. If you drink, you've got a 12-ounce bottle of water and it's really hot in the attic, you're going to come down to your truck on your break. You might go 1, talk for a little bit, eat something maybe, and then 2, and then maybe 1 for good measure, right? Before we go up, everybody does the 1 for good measure, and then you put it back in your truck. If that's the case, you might get 4 to 6, maybe even 8 ounces of water into you, but that's how much you need. So if you're not doing that every 15 minutes, you're going to be back over here in the water loss. The only way to not experience percentages of water loss is to maintain 32 ounces of water per hour and not all at once. So it's even harder. If you only get 1 break an hour, if you only give yourself 1 break an hour and you're in a 120-degree attic, you're going to make yourself sick drinking enough water to replace it. So that's where electrolytes come in. Electrolyte water is great. I will say I am very scared to promote electrolyte water. And it's not because of the electrolytes, those we need. It's because most electrolyte drinks come with a ton of sugar in electrolyte drinks. I know that when we were kids, everybody gave their kids Gatorade, right? Like, oh, it's an electrolyte drink. It's what sports people drink. No, Gatorade is the worst thing you can give somebody who is already having a hard time in the heat. It is full of sugar. It will actually make them release that water more quickly. It may replace the electrolytes, but it won't replace the water. It won't hydrate them. So you want to make sure that it's clear or very, very, very light colored electrolyte drinks. I love the liquid hydration or liquid IV little packs because they have 0 sugar. You pour them into water that's already water, right? Not chemical filled, Kool-Aid essentially. And they're able to replace the electrolytes with the hydration. So I always tell everybody to carry around on their truck a box of those liquid IVs. They're really tasty too if you aren't addicted to coffee. But yeah, they're really, really good for you. Get some of those, put them on your truck. Or again, one of those little Mio squeeze bottles. It's literally one drop of liquid to make it taste better and make you drink it. I would rather you have that than not drink the plain water just because it's plain. Okay. So if you have to flavor your water, try to flavor it with something that has electrolytes in it. And if you can't, you can still flavor it. Because loss of those electrolytes, that sodium, potassium, and magnesium, that's all gonna, the things that that's going to cause in your body, the symptoms, there we go. The symptomology of electrolyte loss is muscle cramps, twitching, seizing in an attic with your buddies watching. Imagine, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Hydrate or dehydrate. Weakness is another thing. I work with pipe wrenches a lot, and I've been hot to a point where I literally couldn't lift my pipe wrenches because of the heat. When you're to that point, you really need to go and take a break, first of all, but you also need to be replacing those electrolytes. And headache. Those of you who get dehydration headaches, you're not getting a headache because you're lacking the water necessarily. You're getting the headache because you're lacking the electrolytes, and you need to replace them. What's that? Ultima makes electrolytes with no sugar that have, I can't read that because it's behind my little thingy. Pink salt to help with absorption. Yes, anything with pink Himalayan salt, pink Celtic salt, pink anything salt is awesome for absorption. But again, you don't want to drink that while you're actively hot because it can also dry you out more quickly. Okay, so that's really all I want to go through as far as what to watch for, how to prevent it, and how to save your life in a really extreme situation. More on products though. So Camelbacks are huge. If you have a Camelback on and you have a little tube right here with water, fresh, yummy, delicious, refreshing water in it, you are way more likely to drink the water when you don't have to leave the attic. You don't have to stop working. You don't have to take a break necessarily. If it's right here next to you, you're way more likely to go than you are to go all the way down the attic, all the way out the house, all the way to the truck, or all the way to the cooler, wherever it might be. Make sure that you have water with you in the attic either way. Yes, it's going to get hot, but whatever, at least it's wet and at least it's hydrates you. So if you can't take Say you're not in an extremely hot attic. You're in, say, 100-degree attic. Well, nobody's going to be pulling you out of there every 30 minutes to take a break. So make sure you have it there with you. Even if it's warm, it's still hydrating you. And again, those liquid IV packs or those little droppers will make all the difference. And then coolie towels. I will say this, if you've ever been to a trade show, you probably have a coolie towel or maybe more than one with somebody's logo on it. They sell them at all of the major HVAC supply houses too. Walmart has them. I think I saw them even at Family Dollar once. They had them like a row of them hanging on a rack. Bigger ones can be cut up into smaller pieces to stick in your groin, to stick under your pits, to stick on your neck. They also have the stick-on hot and cold patches. Now, you got to be careful with those because a lot of it is feel better cooling. Like we talked about the washcloth on the head, a lot of it is feel better cooling. So you're not going to stick those on your armpits, especially men who have hair there. You're not going to stick it under your armpit and then risk when you have to pull it off again. But maybe stick them down here, closer to those blood vessels, closer to those arteries, on your neck, maybe insides the thighs. You can stick them just about anywhere and it will help you to feel better. But make sure when you are sticking them that you're trying to target those places that cool you down faster. Again, your wrists are the best place that you can cool down. They're the fastest and the best cooling. And then obviously things like sun hats, shading yourself from the sun, wearing very, very light clothing. So some people opt for sun sleeves. I know that HVAC Tactical has them. I know that I think Adrian's brand makes them. Reliable HVACR. Maybe they don't. He might wear tacticals. I don't know. But arm sleeves are really good so that you can wear a short sleeve shirt, but also shield your arms from the sun if you're on the roof all day. Balaclavas or a bandana around your neck so that you can cover your face. Make sure that you're not getting burned at the same time as you're dehydrating. And also, anything that's going to make you sweat is a no. Just remember that. So like when you get up in the morning, if you're like, it's going to be really hot today, what should I wear? If you touch something and it feels like it's going to make you sweat, don't wear it. There are a lot of brands out there that miscommunicate what their clothing is for. So you've got like that kind of polyester, like silky feeling shirts, and you put those on, and the second you start sweating, it sticks right to you, and then it makes you sweat more. Those are not for hot days, and they sell them to golfers. They sell them to athletes or, people who are in a hot climate, and it makes absolutely no sense, but they're not for that. And they do a really, really bad job of cooling you. Light cotton is really good. It's got a little bit of absorption to it. When it absorbs your sweat, or if you dump water over yourself, it will keep you cooler for longer. Having a coolie towel to wrap around your neck or to stuff in the rim of your pants right here. All of those things will not only help you to feel better, but they will save your life. So make sure you have a bunch of that on your truck. I'm going to create, after this class, I'll probably post it this evening. I'm going to create a list of products that you can have, should have, will help. Kind of like a little recap that everybody can kind of keep on them on their phone. Maybe you forget, like, what can I do about this? My buddy's just passed out. You have it right on your phone. You can look at it and realize what you should do next. And then also the hydration pack that everybody should have on their trucks. I will put all of that together and put it in the coalition. So, all right, I'm just going to scroll through these comments real quick. I know I have to talk really fast to make this class an hour, but it's a really important class. Thank you, Tom, for coming up with this idea this morning. It was a really good idea. Electrolytes all day. That's right. One man HVAC. Absolutely. When you're alone, it's really scary, Tom, but also, like you said, if we didn't teach this class, there are a lot of technicians who would have no protocol for what to do. There are laws set forth by OSHA that say, like, at this degree, 10 minutes in, 10 minutes out. But they change with states, and municipalities can even change them. OSHA is not federal when it comes to them. So making sure that you go by if it's over 110 degrees, 30 minutes in, 30 minutes out. If it's 130 or more, in and out, and then go with the buddy system across all, you'll be in compliance, but you'll also have a protocol to follow. So yeah, if anybody has any other questions, you can leave them on this video if you watch it later, or you can leave them in the coalition. DM me. You guys know how to get a hold of us. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to this week's free Saturday training. Hopefully we'll be back every single week for the rest of the summer. I'll see you guys on the next one.